The scariest horror movies are the ones based on true stories. And today we're counting down the top 5 real-life cases that inspired horror movies. Number 5, The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel. When it comes to demonic possession stories, there are few that are as disturbing as that of Anneliese Michel. Sadly, the young German girl, a story actually happened, and her case was so terrifying that it even inspired the 2005 film, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. In 1976, a 23-year-old German woman named Anneliese began experiencing disturbing symptoms that would baffle doctors. She would levitate, growl like an animal, and even speak in tongues. Her behavior was so bizarre that she was eventually diagnosed with schizophrenia. But as Anneliese's condition worsened, her family believed something more sinister was at play, and they took her to see a priest. After performing an exorcism on Anneliese, the priest claimed that she was possessed by not one, but at least 3 demons. Over the next 10 months, Anneliese underwent a total of 67 exorcisms. Unfortunately, the exorcisms didn't seem to do much to help Anneliese, and she continued to get worse and worse. On July 1st, 1976, Anneliese passed away during an exorcism. An autopsy revealed that she died of starvation and dehydration. After hearing about Anneliese's story, director Scott Derrickson was immediately inspired to make a movie about her life. The result was the 2005 horror flick, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which starred Jennifer Carpenter and Tom Wilkinson. Although the movie is very loosely based on Anneliese's story, some viewers have criticized Derrickson for portraying the Catholic Church in a positive light. If anything, Anneliese's story should serve as a warning about what can happen when religion and mental illness collide. No, 4. Ed Gein. There are a few names in criminal psychology that strike fear into the hearts of all who hear them, and Ed Gein is definitely one of them. This man was truly a monster, and his crimes inspired some of the most iconic horror films ever made. Between 1954 and 1957, Ed Gein terrorized the small town of Plainfield, Wisconsin. During this time, he committed at least 12 murders, and some reports suggest that his body count may have been much higher. Ed was especially fond of decapitating his victims and making all sorts of creepy souvenirs out of their body parts. When police searched his house, they found human skin masks, lamps made out of human nipples, and even a chair with a back made out of human vertebrae. Needless to say, everyone in Plainfield was pretty horrified to learn what had been going on in Ed's seemingly normal house. As you probably already know, Ed's crimes were the inspiration behind several famous horror flicks. One of the most obvious is Psycho, since the character of Norman Bates is clearly based on Ed. Ed also inspired the 1974 slasher film The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as well as the 1991 thriller Silence of the Lambs. And if you want to see where Ed's house once stood, you're in luck. It's now a popular tourist destination for those interested in true crime. No, 3. The Perron family. The Perron family haunting is one of the most famous paranormal cases in American history. And the events that unfolded in Harrisville, Rhode Island were so terrifying that they inspired James Wan to make The Conjuring. In the early 1970s, the Perron family moved into a farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island. Shortly after they moved in, strange things started happening. Doors would slam, objects would move on their own, and disembodied voices would whisper throughout the house. The family also started experiencing physical abuse at the hands of an unknown entity. Soon, they became convinced that their home was haunted, and they reached out to paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren for help. Ed and Lorraine spent several days at the home investigating, and they soon learned that it was indeed haunted by the ghost of Bathsheba Sherman. Bathsheba was a former resident of the home who had dabbled in witchcraft. After Bathsheba's spirit was laid to rest, the hauntings in the home seemed to stop. However, in the years that followed, New families moved into the home, and the paranormal activities started up again. In the 1980s, Ed and Lorraine returned to the home to perform another exorcism. By the time the exorcism was finished, the Warrens had identified 10 ghosts that were haunting the home. Now known as the Harrisville exorcism, the case quickly became one of the Warrens' most famous. And in 2013, it inspired the hit horror film The Conjuring. Number 2, The Amityville Horror. On December 13th, 1974, 6 members of the DeFeo family were found shot to death in their home in Amityville, New York. The killer was never caught, and the case has remained unsolved to this day. Some believe that the house is cursed, and that's why everyone who's lived there has had some sort of tragedy befall them. George and Catherine DeVito and their 4 children were all shot in the head while they slept. The only survivor of the massacre was George's older brother, Peter. Peter claimed that he was out of the house at the time of the killings, and that he had no idea who could have done such a thing. The police believed Peter's story, but many people suspected that he was hiding something. To this day, we don't know for sure what happened in that house on December 13th, 1974, but we do know that it inspired Jay Anson's 1977 book, The Amityville Horror, and later it was adapted into a movie. But wait, there's more. According to legend, after the massacre, the house was haunted by the ghosts of the DeFeo family. In 1979, the new residents of the home, George and Kathy Lutz, claimed that they experienced strange phenomena, moving objects, shaking beds, and even interacting with unseen forces. After just 28 days in the house, the Lutz family fled and never looked back. While there's no evidence that any of this actually happened, the story was so intriguing that it became a best-selling novel. And later, it was adapted into a movie, The Gainesville Ripper. In 1990, a serial killer terrorized the college town of Gainesville, Florida. He murdered 5 University of Florida students, and although he was never caught, many believe that he is still out there. The Gainesville Ripper was active in August and October of 1990. His first victim was a young woman named Krista Hoyt. The killer broke into Krista's home and brutally stabbed her to death. A few weeks later, he did the same thing to a man named Tracy Pauls. The killer's next target was Sonia Larson and her friend, Alicia Shaw. The 2 girls were at home one night when the killer broke in through a window and stabbed them to death. The Gainesville Ripper then turned his attention to a man named David Jarman and his roommate, Fred Bear. Both men were stabbed multiple times before succumbing to their injuries. Although the police had a composite sketch of the killer, they were never able to track him down. The Gainesville Ripper case remains unsolved to this day, but it inspired one of the most famous slashers of all time, Wes Craven's Scream. In fact, Craven has said that he was so fascinated by the case that he even considered making a movie about it. But ultimately, he decided to focus on other things. However, it is clear that the Gainesville Ripper had an influence on the Ghostface Killer and his bloody reign of terror. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on these real-life cases that inspired horror movies? Let us know in the comments below. And remember to stay tuned for more terrifying tales.